Thanks for that email on the Apple battery because mine does not.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah. My system was up running well.
What's the water, the normal water,
Are you taking a picture?
The water thing, he said it's short, it's just on the study update.
just kind of an
Yeah,
update?
the update with the study.
So it was not lengthy.
Well, that's good.
Gotcha. Success.
Good. How are you? Good.
I'm a roll call.
You have to go to Apple?
Yeah, yeah.
I only did roll tonight, just roll call.
Roll call.
You got this, go ahead.
You're gonna be okay.
That's not, I went on it today, but I didn't have my password and stuff, so I said, need your Apple password. No, I didn't.
Hey, Joe. I don't know what it is.
Well,
Hey, Joe?
it usually is your email address,
Hey, Joe.
but they'll send you.
I know the password.
My password's changed.
Just Jerry.
Yeah, I don't have 4 seconds. Because I don't have my stamp up here, so I'd have to.
Thank you.
Yes.
Make sure you don't
Don't have to use it as if for some reason it fails.
No, that's like, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
If you try to update things, it may not come.
Okay, sounds good.
It reminded me how grateful I am that we don't use paper anymore, so see, there's a reason for everything.
Welcome everyone to the pre-council meeting, City of Joliet, Monday, December 3rd, 2018. Directed by our mayor, Robert Odekirk.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening is a presentation on the alternative water source study update by Allison Swisher, the Director of Public Utilities.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Krista, can you bring up this? All right, so I just wanted to come today to provide an update on the alternative water source study. The project team and the Environmental Commission and staff have been very busily involved working on this project since August. And we just wanted to do a check-in point at this time. So this just gives an overview of what we've been doing. The items in gray are items that we've completed. In September, we developed a communications and public engagement strategy. There were interviews held with key stakeholders to really lay the baseline for how we should proceed with the study. Then in October, we worked on water demand projections and developed water planning scenarios that would help guide us through the study. And in November, we completed a water loss audit. And the items in black kind of show us where we're headed to. As part of this first phase, we're still going to present on updated groundwater modeling, really delve into the alternative water sources, and then in January, come to the council with recommendations for sources that should be moved to further study during phase 2. All right, so the first thing we needed to do was look at how much water we needed. Really kind of evaluate the sources until we knew how much water we would need, not only for the city, but also for the region as a whole, since we are looking at the study in both manners. And as you can see, we developed 4 different planning scenarios. These are all based on population projections. We received the most current information from the CMAP, and they projected populations through 2050, not only for the city, but also for the region. And so these are the 4 planning scenarios that we're going to use to evaluate the alternative water sources. And as you can see, some of these communities, they've provided information, but at this time, we've not had discussions with anyone about, commitments to being part of an alternative water source, but just, we need to be prepared for whatever may happen, 50 years down the road for certain towns who may want to have water provided to them from Joliet. So then the next thing we've done is the water loss audit, and these results were presented to the Environmental Commission as well as the Public Service Committee in November. So what is water loss? Most people think of water loss, they think of the water that's leaking out of the pipes into the ground, or water that's lost during water main breaks. But really the critical term that we use is non-revenue water. And so non-revenue water is the water loss, which I just described as being the water that is leaking when there's holes in pipes or water main breaks, but also the unbilled authorized consumption. And you think about it, we all use water throughout the city in a lot of ways. We have water that's used for street sweeping, we have water that's used when they flush hydrants, water that's used when we clean the sewers. So all of that water usage that is authorized still gets counted towards this non-revenue water percentage. So when they did the calculations for 2016 and 2017, they found that our non-revenue water percentages are 25% and 28%. And those numbers, you think about it, we're losing a quarter of the water we produce. It may seem shocking, but when you look at nationwide, that's actually a pretty average number of what communities are experiencing for non-revenue water. However, when you look at communities in the Chicagoland area who purchase water from Lake Michigan, for example, our levels are significantly higher. And the main factor in reducing water loss is that it has a huge financial impact when you start to purchase water. So for example, right now when we have water that's not billed, we're losing the pumping and chemical and treatment costs. And so with these numbers, it's about 1.3 million. But if we were to be purchasing wholesale water, that number quickly shoots up to almost $7 million that would be attributed to the lost revenue from the water that's not being billed. And in addition, the other impact is the aquifer depletion timeframe. So with the water that we're using that doesn't need to be used, our timeframe then that we can rely on the aquifer is decreased. So moving forward, we're going to really focus on addressing water loss and ways to reduce it. So we have a lot of recommendations that we will be moving forward with to not only track our water usage better, but also look at ways that we can reduce that through programs we already have in place, such as leak detection, repairs, and others, which we've presented in much more detail to the Public Service Committee. So in 2015, the Illinois State Water Survey did an update on the groundwater modeling. And at that time, they had, based on their modeling results, said that we could rely on the aquifer for approximately 15 to 30 more years. So as part of this project, we thought it was very critical to get that model updated with specific information that we have from the city to input into that model. So when they did that updated modeling, they found that it was actually closer to the 15-year time frame. And so assuming that we reduce demand and do short-term implementation to reduce our water usages, we can reliably at this point say that we can expect to have, we can rely on the aquifer until 2030. So we have short-term strategies we've identified. Those include construction of new wells to address projected population growth, as well as developing our current wells to increase the yield that we get from them. And of course, then looking at water conservation and water loss reduction. So I guess I'm here to say that we can no longer delay this process, and we are in a good position now that we can move forward with design and have that alternative water source in place by 2030. So to summarize, who's calling this the call to action? We have a better understanding of the time frame in which we need to find the alternative water source and have it in place. We need to move forward on the track that we currently are on to have that alternative water source in place by 2030. At the staff level, we are going to be continuously monitoring our current wells for new trends and having that data provided to the Illinois State Water Survey so that we can make sure that that 2030 timeframe remains accurate. We're going to focus on water loss and water conservation strategies. The Environmental Commission formed a water conservation subcommittee to specifically look at water conservation efforts. And so you should be seeing next year some of their ideas presented to council for implementation. All other critical factors, engaging and educating stakeholders and the public to gain support. We do have a public relations firm now as part of our team, and we'll be looking at ways to get out into the neighborhoods and events to make sure that people are educated about this, and so that no one's surprised when we do need to move forward with the alternative water source. So as I mentioned before, in January, we will come back with some recommendations from the Environmental Commission to the council as to which of the alternative water sources warrant further study in phase 2. And then the ultimate goal then would be to have the decision made by the end of next year for which alternative water source we're proceeding with. And I'll just mention, kind of on the other side of the slide, this idea of rethinking water, and that is the brand that we've established for the project. And we just really need to rethink water, not only rethinking the source of the water that we use, but also how we use water and the value of water. If there's any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Questions?
None. Thank you.
Council, yeah, thank you. You and the committee are doing good work. It's a shame this got ignored for so long, but I'm glad we're reassuring the people of Joliet we are not ignoring this anymore. We're going to get this done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we'll pass it over to the city manager to discuss tomorrow night's agenda items.
The first thing on our agenda is discussion of the city manager proposed 2019 budget, and there'll be a motion to set a public hearing for the 2019 budget for December 17th. And as for committee reports, CTIS and Public Service are going to provide their reports. There's one item on the consent agenda. That's approval of minutes. License and permit applications, issuance of a Class B liquor license, 3000 West Jefferson Street. The dock at Inwood is the business located inside the Inwood Athletic Club. I'll invite the liquor commissioner up.
Mayor, City Council, public hearing was held on October 31st, 2018 at 9 a.m. for a request for a new Class B liquor license. The applicant was Julie and Mike Trafton, DBA The Dock at Inwood. Location is 3000 West Jefferson Street. No persons appeared in oppositions. There is no outstanding money owed to city. The building department will approve after completion of reservations. Police and fire have no issues. Based on the facts of the hearing, the Liquor Commission is recommending approval. Any questions?
Questions?
Is the owner here, Oak? Come up. We want the owner, the lady behind her.
Yeah.
The boss, we want the boss, okay?
That is the boss.
That's the boss.
So do you have liquor experience?
What do you mean by that?
Just remember the choir boys.
You're applying for this license, and I don't want the business to go under before it even gets started.
Well, that's
So
what I have my
you have
brother for, so. Yeah, we're very excited about it. This is Rick's third endeavor into the restaurant business, so really happy to be involved with Melissa and Rick and Julie. So the place is looking great. Hopefully by mid-month, with your approval, we'll be up and running, and something we can all be proud of. So great renovations, a lot of steel and stone following the city, so it's looking nice.
I know you're excited. Is Melissa excited too about this?
I am very excited.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Questions? Thank you.
Free cocktails in May. I'm just saying.
In our public hearings, ordinances, Council Memo 6/2118, ordinances and a resolution associated with Corridor 80 subdivision located at the southeast corner of Spencer and Cherry Hill Road. There were a handful of questions at the Plan Commission meeting, and a few members of the public did speak in opposition. Mr. Dave Silverman, the attorney for the applicant, is expected to attend tomorrow, but he's also here tonight if there are any questions.
I do have one question.
Yes.
I just want to know if, with the opposition from the neighbors, have you talked to any of those neighbors? No.
Good evening, I'm Dave Silverman, representing the developer. I don't know that they have talked to them outside the planning commission. We have worked with city staff to, I think, address a lot of their concerns and work on some landscaping and some berming and some other roadway improvement issues. I don't know that anybody's.
Oh,
per
as
se
long as
said
you-
that, but
You allow
we
for
have met
farming.
with- We have met with city staff and understood their problems at the planning commission. I think.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, can you address the way the traffic is going to be routed? Because I know that was one of the questions.
Right. Councilman Morris was kind enough to show me something this evening before the meeting, which frankly the representative from Exeter had not seen. We think something was put on their website by one of the realtors that showed two traffic routes, one of them going east on Spencer and the other going west on Spencer. It's our understanding and what we have to do to comply with the requirements of the annexation agreement, the city staff, is to improve Spencer going east from this property to Gallagher Road, where they'll then follow through to New Lenox to I-80. We also understand that at some point in the future, with the development of the northern property and this property, that Charity Hill could become a truck route. So if that happens, traffic could go that way. Councilman Morris pointed out to me a brochure that the lady had, which we think is an error. Spencer Road heading west from this property is not a truck route, it's an unimproved township road. And we think that the realty department at Exeter may put that on mistake, put that on the website, and Mr. Pudwell has assured me that that will be taken down. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, and we know that Spencer Road is not a truck route west of Cherry Hill, but is there anything in the plan to trucks that will be leaving that development not to go past the Union School west on Spencer, from west?
Going west, not that I'm aware of. I suppose we could work with city staff and maybe with Northern Builders, who will also be using Cherry Hill Road. You know, if there's signage that can be put up or whatever we can do. But we're certainly not intending to use that road because it's not equipped for truck traffic. To my knowledge, it's not a truck route. I assume that anything going over there would be overweight and it would be an enforcement issue. If there's some ideas, you know, Jason Wiesbrook from Spaceco and also Mr. Budwell from Exeter are here tonight. We could try to address those, but I'm just not sure what they would be other than signage, that it's not a truck route and, you know, overweight trucks would be prohibited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Yes. Public comments, I think we skipped
Yeah, we
them.
did skip,
Why don't we
yes.
just do them at the end of the meeting then?
Okay.
Yeah, we're not doing any voting tonight, so
Okay,
that would be appropriate.
okay, thank you.
Under ordinances and resolutions, Council Memo 623-18, ordinance approving intergovernmental cooperative planning and boundary agreement between the City of Joliet and Village of Plainfield. The current boundary between Joliet and Plainfield expired in January of 2017. There are no changes in the boundary, which is actually unchanged since 2004, and this is a proposed 5-year term.
Will that be 5 years from 2017 or from tonight?
5 years from I think January of next year, so five
2019?
years and, yes. You know, if that's not, then I'll correct it tomorrow.
Okay,
Next is Council Memo 624-18. This is an ordinance adding electric fences as a special use subject to certain regulations. The Plan Commission did have a hearing and voted 8-0 in favor. The proposed ordinance places electric fences as a special use in I-1, I-2, and I-T zoning districts. And just so you know, there are some precautionary measures, including not limited to references to the International Electrotechnical Commission standards, a non-electrical fence on the outside, which is not less than 6 feet in height and not less than 12 inches away, warning signs, and a requirement to register with the city similar to burglar alarms.
Mayor, I still have some questions on this. Marty, why 10 feet tall? Why did the max has to be 10 feet?
The max is 10 feet.
I know, but why? Are they gonna be 10 feet? Because if they're electric, why do they have to be 10 feet?
I don't know that answer.
Good evening, excuse me, good evening, Cindy Williams with Electric Guard Dog. The reason for the height, 10 feet is the industry standard for that. Typically, industrial zones allow 8-foot fencing. And if you recall, the external chain link fence or the perimeter fence that is in front of the electrified fence is non-electrified. So you have a fence in front of the electric fence that's non-electrified. If they're the same height as that non-electrified fence, then the bad people can just climb the fence and hop over. So it does need to be an additional 2 feet.
But if they hop over, won't they be stuck between the short fence and the tall fence?
No, because they're only 12 inches apart.
And how do you take care of the weeds and grass in between of those two
That's
fences?
another reason why they're so close, is because you do have to take care of the vegetation or it will, provide, the fence won't arm up if it's got something touching it. So we do provide as part of their service contract, it's the customer's responsibility to keep the fence line clean, and we do provide them with some, herbicides and
So chemicals?
herbicide, yeah, like weed killer, if there's weeds. However, they would normally take care of weed maintenance. But they have to keep it clean of debris and all of that stuff, anything that would touch the fence.
And they know that when you put that up?
Yes, ma'am, it's in their contract, yes, they do. And again, these are businesses that have this all over the country, so they're used to having to keep that vegetation level. Because if you recall, the thing that reaching that fence, touching that fence for more than 5 seconds is what sets off the alarm. And so they have to keep it clean or it won't arm up when they try to turn it on at night.
Okay, thanks.
But the height, did that answer your height difference? The reason for the additional height, you have to have something taller than the non-electrified fence in front of it. And that is the industry standard across the country. Any other questions?
The ordinance 62518 is an ordinance adding firearms dealers and gunsmiths as a special use in B2 Central Business District and a permitted use in B3 General Business District. Interestingly, firearms dealers and gunsmiths, which probably been around since the founding of our nation, were not specifically called out or defined in our code, so we actually heard from some of our community members and have taken action. This ordinance defines firearm dealers and gunsmiths and includes, but not limited to, a host of requirements, masonry or similar wall construction, video cameras, safes, and a distance requirement.
Thank you, Marty.
Council Memo 626-18, ordinance repealing Chapter 19, Article 3, motor vehicle licenses. City stickers on cars haven't been required in over 20 years, and this eliminates the city's requirement actually to go back and look every year and see if we should be doing it. The next two ordinances are similar. Council Memo 627-18 and 628-18, ordinance prohibiting possession of alternative nicotine products by a person under the age of 18 and requiring violations of the ordinance requiring smoking regulations to be adjudicated according to the administrative adjudication system, and an ordinance amending tobacco licensing regulations to include nicotine alternative products, i.e. vaping, removing provisions allowing parents to allow tobacco products by minors and and adding delinquent fines as a grounds for non-renewal of a license. Most of those two ordinances are self-explanatory. Individual police officers actually did approach me when I was still illegal to address vaping by minors, so I just have to do a special thank you to Mr. Regis for addressing this.
Quick question, Mayor.
Yes.
Chris, am I understanding this correctly? Our old ordinance allowed young people to smoke if their parents allowed them to?
That's correct. There was an exemption in there for minors in the presence of their parents.
using tobacco products.
And yet the state didn't have that exemption, did they? So it was illegal in the state, but so it's good that you're updating this.
Generally, when there's something strange like that in there, it comes from someplace else, so I did check the state statute, and at least in its current form, it is not in there. And since it's not part of the state statute, I thought it best to take it out of ours.
Oh, I think it's great that you took it out, yeah.
Okay, next is ordinance 629-18, ordinance amending section 19-21, overweight vehicles by adding a section of Schweitzer Road. Recently, the city has taken a more focused approach on trucks, etc., and locations where they shouldn't be. This ordinance, and then Council Memo 631-18, which increases the fine for overweight vehicles on roadways to $750, along with a recently enacted increased truck patrols, will hopefully keep trucks on the roads where they should be. Council Memo 630-18, ordinance amending Chapter 6, Section 6-6, cruelty to animals by adding 3 further restrictions fitting into our existing structure of ordinances, adding, and I'm just summarizing briefly, heat cold, animal fighting, and prohibition against keeping an animal in an enclosure without sufficient food, water, light, and ventilation.
Mayor,
Yes.
I still have an issue with this ordinance because there's nothing in there about the tethering. I keep remembering that poor dog that hung himself over the fence because his chain got caught in there and he couldn't get off. And he was left unattended, and we don't have anything about how long the tethering should be or how short the tethering should be and how long they should be tied up out there. It's just cruel.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, that was brought up at the last Land Use and Legislative Committee meeting, and I'll assure everyone that the animal cruelty ordinance continues to be a work in progress, and the next item to address with that would be tethering regulations. So it's on the to-do list.
To be added to it later.
Well, I thought we voted that down some time ago. At least I'm mistaken.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it back up, because I think it's very important, because after we voted it down, that's when that poor dog got hung on the fence and died.
Chris and Marty, I mean, there's a state animal, or maybe Chief Al. Animal cruelty, I believe, could be a felony, correct? So there's no ordinance that we could pass that would have anywhere near the impact that the state law. Am I mistaken about that?
No, you're correct on that. But I mean, I can work with Chris on this to see if there's anything else we can.
I can't hear you.
But, yeah, the state law definitely is better equipped for that. Right on that.
I could hardly hear what you're saying.
I said it's better to write under the state law for the animal cruelty when it comes to that.
But
As far as
if
penalties,
the officers were gonna make an arrest, like a dog was abused and died, you would never charge him with a finable offense, right? You would charge him with the state statute.
Right, we'd go state statute, not city ordinance for that, correct.
Okay, let me give you an example then. For state statute, you have dogs in a hot car and they died. What's the recourse for the police department? Not for us. We have an ordinance for that.
I'd have to look up how it's actually written, but we would get with the state's attorney's office. I know we've charged it before for animal cruelty, and it is a felony if I recall properly.
Because the problem is a lot of the police departments don't know about that state law, and ours didn't know about it years ago either.
I don't know any department that isn't aware of a felony.
I won't mention it publicly. I'll tell you after the meeting.
Okay, well, ours certainly is, and when that happened, because I remember the case at the mall a couple of years ago, they weren't charged with an ordinance, they were arrested and charged with a jailable state offense, not given a fine by the city.
Oh,
Yeah, that's correct, they were.
I just think that should be in there. I just think that's my opinion. I think it should be in there. I hate seeing dogs chained up in the hot summer with no water, and they're out there and they're running around and they're chained up forever, or if it's raining or it's cold, because not everybody reports that either. And we can't be patrolling that all the time. Okay, it's my opinion. Don't like it.
That actually might even fit under one of the existing ones we have under that section, which would be subsection C, unnecessarily failing to provide animal with food, drink, shelter. Anything more on that one?
That's a current ordinance?
That's current ordinance, yes. Subsection C in that same section.
It's very vague, though.
Okay, 631-18, we just touched on it briefly already. It's increasing the fine for overweight vehicles from $500 to $750. Next is Council Memo 632-18 and 633-18, ordinance creating a regulatory framework for pet shop licensing in Chapter 18, Article 13, Section 18-260 through 267. The proposed ordinance largely models existing state law. This will allow for local enforcement. And then Council Memo 633-18, the licensing fee, and that is fixed at $150. Under Resolution 634-18, imposing a moratorium on the issuance of Class V permits east of Route 59.
Quick question, Mayor.
Yes.
Quick question, Marty. How is this, does it address anything where, say, there's a liquor establishment that's currently for sale that is using the video gaming as part of their marketing plan to sell the property? Would they be allowed to, the new owners be allowed to go for a license?
You know, that would kind of be I kind of thought about that one already. So if someone is selling it and you apply for a license, it would be essentially a license transfer from, if it's the same essentially business or owner. So
They keep it the same business.
Keep it the same business. So.
Traditionally, we've allowed existing licenses with machines to go ahead and transfer to the new owner without change.
Thank you.
Yes.
Marty or Chris, for clarification, does this moratorium allow for gaming, video gaming licenses on both sides of Route 59, or is Route 59 included in the ban, Route 59 and East?
Just east of Route 59, so the east side of the road would be included in the moratorium.
So the east side wouldn't be able to, but the west side would?
That's correct.
Okay.
You have it backwards.
Hmm?
You have it backwards.
The east side would not be allowed?
Yes.
And the west side would?
In the west side would.
In our bids and contracts, these items were reviewed by Public Service Committee. We'll report on any issues during the committee report tomorrow. And finally, there is a request for a brief executive session tonight.
First is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak this evening?
My name is Susan Major. I live at 1702 Hillcrest Road in Joliet. I read yesterday an article from November 21st in Crane's Chicago Business. Industrial real estate has been one of the hottest property sectors in the Chicago area over the past few years, fueled by the strong economy and growth of e-commerce, which has boosted demand for warehouse space. The local industrial vacancy rate dropped to 6.4% in the third quarter, its lowest level since early 2001, according to brokerage Colliers International. Demand has kept pace with supply, with one exception, in far southwest suburbs like Joliet and Romeoville, where developers have built a bunch of huge warehouses on a speculative or spec basis without signing tenants in advance. 7 buildings exceeding 700,000 square feet, about 12 football fields, are available for lease along Interstate 80 and I-55. The I-80 corridor has the highest vacancy rate, 11.8%, among all Chicago industrial submarkets. So you have on your agenda tonight approval for another 292,000 square foot warehouse, an 802,000 square foot warehouse, and another 457,000 square feet. If you already have a vacancy rate of 11.8%, why are you approving more warehouses? Why is this the only option for that land that you can think of, is more warehouses when you're already seeing a glut in warehousing? Not to mention, you had the woman up here earlier talking about your water issue. Once again, warehouses, just like any other building, use water. Why do you have to rush to approve more warehouses until you can get the water situation straightened out? Same with the traffic. You want to have a 3-hour traffic study or a 3-hour discussion on the traffic, but yet you're going to keep approving warehouses even though you don't have the traffic situation taken care of. I just don't understand what your rush is to keep approving warehouse after warehouse. Anytime somebody comes up here before you with a plan to build one, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to rubber stamp it and say, yeah, we're gonna do this. Can't you just at least step back and just take a look at what you already have before you keep approving more? That's all I'm asking. And if you are going to approve these warehouses, you know, please at least be considerate of the people who live there, the people who don't live within the city limits, who don't have a say in what you guys are doing, and at least have the decency to make these people, you know, put traffic barriers so that their trucks have to go to Gauger Road and don't depend on self-regulating truck drivers to not go to Bridge Street via Spencer Road, because anybody knows that that's just not gonna happen. If you think, you know, Will County or anybody has enough manpower to sit there and police that section of Spencer Road to make sure the trucks aren't gonna go down it, then, you know, it's just ridiculous. It's not gonna happen. So all I'm asking is please take a step back and watch what you're doing and just take the time to think about approving more warehouses when you already have a glut in this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julia Alexander, and I am here on behalf of Including You. Last month, our organization stood before you and received a proclamation, which we are very, very proud of. Along with that proclamation, as Councilwoman Gavin so eloquently read, along with that proclamation, we promised to tell you, inform you of the history, continued history and the history of Including You. And that's one of the reasons why I am here today, also to say thank you very much from Including You. The history of Including You, it first sparked, I believe it was maybe 2014. I had interviewed on my TV show, The Inform, I interviewed Mayor Odekirk. And Mayor Odekirk made the comment that he thinks that the city should represent its people that live in it. And at that time, we had the Black Pride Parade, so we were kind of represented in the downtown area. So there again, 2015, I believe, when he ran for mayor, Mayor Odekirk ran for mayor, he made the public comment again as I interviewed him, that he thinks the city should represent the people that live in it. At that point in time, we had not had the Black Pride Parade. For whatever reason, the parade had diminished. And so I seized and saw the opportunity to still be a part of the downtown because we didn't have the Black Pride Parade. So therefore, I called Mr. Mayor. He was not available at the time. However, he did get back with me when he was available. We discussed it. And after discussing it, he still held true to what he said, that the city should represent its people that live in it. And I commend you on that. And as you all can see, he's been from corner to corner in the city, supporting every corner of the city. And so we talked about it, so I set out to talk to the public about it and get some comments and feedback. Well, yeah, it was a little rocky at first, you know, because people thought that we were trying to take over the Black Pride Parade, which that was not the case. And this was something totally different, plus us giving us the opportunity to be a part of this great city center. So after all that had taken place, we got off the ground, and the rest is history. I have always put on events and raised money. As you all know, that I am a very gregarious person, and so I felt, I had looked at Alianza in New Orleans and really my Congressman's dream of having an event of that magnitude. And due to our mayor, you really have given me the opportunity, this is personal for me, given me the opportunity to succeed my expectations or to just go over and above what I expected. So that is the history of including you. Of course, you all know that 2019 is coming, and we look forward. As a matter of fact, Councilwoman Gavin, you were there. Councilman Doug Dickerson, you were there. Councilman James.
Great time.
Yep. And
Great
you all was there, and I really thank you and support you, and I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I took what you said during the interviews, and you have stood fast by them. You have been in every corner of this city since the time that I've known you, working with everyone, and I once again appreciate you giving me the opportunity to put on such an event. So at the last meeting, I walked away. I don't know if it was nervous. Okay, just tell me to wrap up. I walked away. I don't know if it was nervousness or reaction or whatever.
Mayor might he might not say it because you give him all these accolades, but.
Okay. Well, I just want to give you guys, and I didn't give you the opportunity to make.
He was actually going like this, continue.
Oh.
That was Marty telling you.
I want to give you guys the opportunity to make a comment because I didn't do that before. Maybe I was a little nervous, Larry, I love you. Maybe I was just a little nervous in doing it, but I would like to hear from you all. And John, I'm sorry about you weren't.
I was waiting to get included in this.
Well, thank you. Any comments, questions?
I'd like to make a comment, Your Honor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Julia, I am, the whole community appreciates what you do for this community in terms of keeping us informed and trying, thinking outside the box to make sure that we are all included. I want to give a high five to the mayor too, because I thought it was an excellent idea when he came up with it, and you saw it through. So thank you, thank both of you, the mayor and including you, all of the members. Thank you for your good work.
I thank you for your leadership and taking the ball and running with it. It was a great event.
Yeah.
It's going to get bigger every year, I'm sure. With the success you had already, more people are coming to the table. So.
I think so, and I look forward to your support because 2019 is coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice, a lot of families were there.
Yeah,
Made it very
that's what made it so good.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Margie Sepon. I live at 1114 Wood Iris Drive, and I would like to add to the information that Susan Major had presented. I do have, if I could approach the city clerk, I have a handout because I do have the study that was conducted by Collier International regarding the Chicago overall industrial warehouse market as well as the sub-markets. Do you mind?
Sure.
Thank you. At the end of that research study, I did include the Chicago Cranes article from November 21st regarding Joliet and the 11.8 vacancy rate that was stated in that article from this particular study. Just a couple of things I just want to bring up. This study is very well done. You can see what's going on in the submarkets such as Fox Valley, Aurora, I-55 corridor, the I-80 corridor, and each submarket, there are certain criteria that you can very quickly see what the vacancy rate is, such as just opening up on page 4, vacancy rate for Central DuPage in Q3 2018. This is a Q3 2018 report, is 3.48. And a year ago, Q3 2017 was 5.29. However, if you skip to page 18, which is the I-80 Joliet corridor, it shows that Q3 2017 vacancy rate was 6.93, and 1 year later, it rose to 11.08. It does state that the net absorption turned strongly negative during the third quarter. There were some explanations as to why, Toys R Us and IKEA moving. However, in the very first paragraph, it talks about during the past 5 quarters, 10 speculative construction projects totaling 6.4 million square feet have been completed and remain 95.5% vacant. So this report, I think, I have not had a chance to devour it, but I will, and I think it's an important data source to see what's going on in the warehouse market in Joliet. Is it a hiccup? Is it overbuilt? Is our new speculative buildings that are planned on being built, will they be leased? So, and that affects property values, it affects rents per square foot. So I'm requesting that before this new project could be approved, could we please take a look at the data that's out there to see, is the market maxed out already? And any new warehouses that actually come in, would they even be occupied? So I wanted to give you a copy of this report, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Brooks. I live at 1601 Glenwood Avenue. It's nice to meet you. We've talked on the phone.
Yes.
Thanks, Jan.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I'd like to address you guys today about your moratorium on the gambling machines. I'm president of the Ravens AC. If you don't know what an AC is, they're a very strong tradition in Joliet. In 3 days, we'll be celebrating 92 years in existence. I mean, excuse me, we still have our original charter signed in 1929 or 26. We are in dire straits. We are in the process of trying to get these machines. It could mean we have to close our doors because you guys put a moratorium on us, not let us have a couple of machines. Why a line at 59? It's your downtown center. We're right at Ruby and Bluff. We've been here since 1929, and we will be turned down because of this moratorium, which would mean that we would probably close our doors within a year to 2 years. We barely scrape enough to break even. It's a club that we've done a lot of community service throughout the years. The steel mills was our heyday from what I've been told. I've only been a member for 10 years. But we have members that have been here 60 years. 90% of us are Joliet residents. A lot of snowbirds that have moved on to Florida and Arizona, but they come back. They come back to Joliet, they come back to the Ravens, they come back to the Northwest, they come back to the Moran. All of these are ACs. Please don't let that happen to us. Please consider something where you're established business. We're not a pop-up, 1926. Please consider an amendment that says an established business for however long that you might consider giving us that license. And then $1,000 on top of it, that might prohibit us from getting it as well. $250 is pretty stiff for us. And most of your old mom and pop businesses that are around here. You know, we're not a gambling emporium that wants to create a video poker machine in the back. We're looking for 3 machines. We're through the process right now. We're going through it. We have the IGBT agent. We're getting ready for our inspection. But if you pass this, it all goes up in smoke. And it could be the end of us. A long-standing tradition in the city of Joliet. Also, I'd like to say, Chief, I'm sort of disappointed in you, sir. I was really hoping to get my picture with Chief Alt. I love that. That is awesome. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Please reconsider that, and please make the chief wear that next time, and I'll actually come back to the meeting to get a picture with him. I think that's a wonderful Facebook aspect. So, thank you tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Section 2 of the proposed resolution says that the resolution shall not apply to any business which has submitted an application for a Class V permit. All they have to do is submit an application, the moratorium will not apply to them.
Tomorrow?
Sure.
We're unable to submit an application until we get approval from the IGBT.
You can go to the mayor's office and fill out the application, and that'll be fine.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good.
Sir, anyone else that would like to speak under public comments?
Yes.
Quick question. On the Spencer Road, Cherry Hill Road project that we're considering tomorrow, is that an owner, if you will, owner occupied, or is that a spec? I'm gonna ask him.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's important to point out, we're not in for any final approvals tonight. What we're in for is, tomorrow night, we're in for the preliminary plat and planning phase. We have nobody in line to come in and occupy the building at this point. I think it's important to point out that Exeter is a very sophisticated company. They're the third largest real estate landlord in the world. And I think they will do a good market analysis on their behalf so that they're comfortable that they'll be able to lease it up when they build it. That doesn't necessarily, it could be built on spec or it may not be. We just don't know, but they'll do a thorough analysis to make sure before they invest these funds that they're going to get a return on their investment. And it is in your comprehensive plan and has been for years to be an industrial project like this. So I think that it gives the city the opportunity now to move forward with the planning. You know what this building's going to look like, what this property's going to look like, and what the road improvements that go along with it will be, so that you can help the city plan going into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just had a comment, Mayor.
Yes.
Mrs. Mader, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate anybody's comments that comes before us, and I do listen. There was one brief comment you alluded to, which I think I caught right away, was, about us having another forum to discuss the problem and whether we have a problem, what the problem is. I know it was misrepresented in the local media outlet. That's not what I said 2 weeks ago. What I said was I waited till after the November election because I didn't want it to become a political football. November was crazy. And I also said we've had enough if you will, forums where people are debating where's the problem, what's the right specifics. Let me really dress it down so that nobody can misinterpret it and put it out there outside of maybe the long-winded way I said it 2 weeks ago. When folks come here, we welcome here, and you might have some questions. You have several, questions, if you will, embedded in your comments. Some we can answer. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, you guys are approving something on Emerald by 53, what's going to happen with Emerald? Well, Jim Trisnick can come up here and I can tell you we're requiring him to widen turn lanes and a stoplight. Well, when are you going to do that on 53? We aren't. It's not our road. And then people always ask, well, when will that happen on 53? My focus, this isn't informational. One thing that the dog catcher to the President of the United States shares in common is we answer to you, to the people that vote. We're fellow residents, but we answer to you. Instead of having folks come here or any other forum where they get partial answers to their questions because we can tell them what Joliet will do with the roads we control, but we can't tell them what the state will do with the bridges, or the state and federal government will do I-80 or 55. We don't know. That's their agenda. This meeting is to put every elected official who controls a road, every village, along the I-80 corridor that's willing to participate, to come here so that you can say, what's going to happen on Emerald? And we can stand up as Joliet representatives and say, this is what we plan on doing on Emerald. And when you say 53, what about that, Councilman Hug or Mayor Odekirk? I don't know what the county's doing. Mr. County, can you please answer her question? That's my vision of this meeting, that you folks are going to have a chance to do one-stop shopping, come to a forum, not to ask questions about what might be done, to say, what are you doing? We all know there's a problem, right? We know there's a problem. We don't. Well, we don't know. We don't know we know it's a problem. We don't need to discuss that. The traffic needs to be addressed, and we also know, for the most part, without drilling down to the engineering of a specific road, how many lanes I-80 should be. We got to get to that point. What's holding it up? Let's be frank. Money from those responsible for their own roads. We pay money to improve the roads as we do it. The roads we control. But we can't go control county's roads. That'd be like somebody coming, you come home and your neighbor decided to put siding on your house. You might say, great, it's free. Yeah, but it's pink. I don't want pink siding. It's not our home to remodel. So what I envisioned at this meeting was an opportunity to have a meet and greet prior to a staging, if you will, so that you can go up to the city council and talk to the mayor or talk to Councilman Morris or myself or whatever. Or you can say, okay, thank you. You can go over and say, oh, there's the Joliet Township representative. I got questions about their roads, because I can't give you the answer for Joliet Township or Plainfield Township or Jackson Township. I don't know what they're planning on doing. I don't know what their immediate 5-year or 10-year comprehensive plan is to address the traffic problem that already exists. So that was the vision of it. It was misrepresented in the media by one media outlet because it wasn't another one to determine if we have a problem. I said explicitly at the meeting, we all pretty much know we have a problem. And we've all heard people talk about we have a problem. I want a meeting where everybody, from the dog catcher to the president, is there to answer. What's going to happen on I-80? Mayor Oderkirk, can you tell me what the federal government? No, but here's the federal representative. Ask him. Correct? Right. So that's what wanted to clarify. So I'm excited about having that opportunity. And apparently, you know, the city manager said it might be more towards the spring. It could be January, February, March, April. Who cares? I don't care when it is. I want it ASAP. But now we're trying to get a bunch of representatives, elected and administrative representatives from how many different levels of government and communities?
There's a lot.
Okay, a lot. This is, well, that's not really me. That's the mayor that makes that decision. So my point is, that's what we're doing. It's going to be an informational where you can come up and ask people about the roads and the solutions that they control. You know, I mean, if you ask the state rep, what's Joliet going to do with Emerald, they can't tell you. That's us. And we can't tell you what they're going to do.
Well, and I truly appreciate that. It's something that obviously needs to be done. And my point with these warehouses that are coming in is everybody knows it's a problem, but you don't throw grease on a fire. You know, you don't make a bigger problem. Why approve any more warehouses in this area when you do have a glut showing? Why approve more warehouses that is going to bring more traffic, that's going to bring more issues until you solve, or at least have a plan to solve the issues that are already here? I'm not saying don't ever build a warehouse again, but why can't we just take a little breather, take a step back, and evaluate what we already have? Let the market, let the rents catch up to what you already have here, to catch up to the warehousing that's here. Let the traffic catch up, let the state, the city, the county, let everybody get their comprehensive plan together for the roads. And then once we have that roadmap, then we can all see, okay, now we have room to plan, to approve this other warehouse development. We have room to widen 80 so that, you know, it's not backed up on the bridge every day. I think we need to stop putting the cart before the horse and just, you know, pull the cart over to the side of the road for a while until we can come up with some solutions for the problems we already have in this area, with the traffic, with the water. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved. Second.
Motion seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hugg?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried.